Welcome to the Black Pen Podcast, where we celebrate writing, the power of writing. Hi, I'm Diane Johnson, your host. I'm a writer, a visual artist, and a lover of all things. And let me introduce you to my co-host, my writing buddy, Robert. Welcome.
Hi, welcome. Well, I'm Robert Greer Sr., and I am a storyteller in the mediums that I am, and I connect with people through writing, through poetry, through visual art, and a line of apparel that reminds people that we are not alone in this world. And this podcast is for writers, experienced writers, those people that do not believe in their voice yet, and we're here to tell you that your voice does matter. And those that are just starting out writing, we want to be able to encourage you to continue to keep writing and chase your writing dreams, you could say.
Dreams, yes,
And
yes.
this conversation today, it's really brings insight to us as writers, and it also gives us an opportunity to meet new people
Right.
and share their voices, share their influence on their communities and how they invoke change. So we're very excited about today's episode. So who do we
right.
have? Who's on our conversation
All
today?
right. We want to welcome Rochelle Riley and want to thank you for your time coming on
Yes.
today to sharing with us. And I'm just going to dive right into this wonderful book that you have authored. And if you don't mind, Rochelle, we'll just start right at the beginning and share with us this journey and process of bringing this book alive.
Thank you so much for having me. I am thrilled to be here. I need to tell all of your viewers and listeners that I am a writer by trade, warrior by necessity.
Yes.
So I have been writing since I was 8 years old, and after spending almost 20 years as a nationally syndicated columnist, I'm now director of arts and culture for the city of Detroit. But I still write. I will write, I will speak out, I will advocate because that's what I think we have to do, not just in these times, but we've always done that.
Yes.
So I think are you holding the burden?
Yeah.
Well, let me start with that one. I have two books, but I want to tell you the burden came about because I have thought for some time that we have been misteaching American history. I did this whole campaign, One America, One History, because when you leave out
Mm-hmm.
Black history, you're not teaching all of American history. But then I decided it's bigger than that because what we have done since the end of enslavement is carry the burden of trying to fix things. Everybody
Yep.
wants us to
Yes.
fix things. We keep begging for equality. We keep trying to push for things. And so we carry the burden of doing all of that when that's America's job.
Mm.
So I reached out to 20 different people and said, I'd like you to write an essay about what that means to carry that burden. And I reached out to my friend Nicole Hannah Jones and asked her to write the foreword. And it's one of the best things that she's ever written. And she wrote it 2 years before she did the 1619 project. People ask me, my email is Rochelle Riley 1619 at gmail.com. They said, is that because of the 1619 project? I said, no, I adopted that years before when I did the burden. And the essays were all different. When you think about all the different ways that we carry that, we don't just carry that
Yes.
trauma, but we carry all the work to try and fix the trauma. Every one
Mm.
of the essays was different. So my hard job after I got all of those essays in and edited them was to write my essay. So my essay was about permission and
Oh,
Okay.
how we
wow.
have been for decades and decades and decades and decades seeking permission to be great, to have equal jobs, to
Yes.
have equal
Yes.
education. And it's time for us to stop asking for permission to be whole.
Yep.
Right. Right. And just do it.
Yeah, be advocators for it. Yeah,
Absolutely.
step into the forefront of it. Absolutely. That's such an it's very inspiring to hear that because that's how all of us feel anyway. I think
Right.
sometimes even as writers we can't express that in the correct way. So like the burden full of those essays, it makes so much sense because it draws attention to so many different experiences and then people's the way they've grown up, the way they've perceived life and the way that they enjoyed it or they have not and how that portrays to us as we read it. So that
Hmm. And just the burden as a common
mhm.
thread that runs through our culture. It's just there, whether we want it there or not. We just have that sense and that feeling that we are the ones that have to carry it.
And
But
it breaks
tell
my
us
heart.
about,
But let me say one more thing. It breaks my heart that we
okay,
then have to teach generation after generation of our children to have to deal with that burden. That always bothers me so much. It's not just Black men who have to have the talk with their boys, but it's
Mhm.
all
Hmm.
parents and grandparents who have to prepare their children to carry that burden and to try and make it a little less each generation. So
Mhm.
we got
Yeah.
to do something
Just
about that
just
too.
a way of life. Just a way of life for us.
Well, and I think
Exactly.
that's one of the reasons why this podcast is existing is to bring light to that. Because as a Black experience in our on our own, there's things that we haven't been taught, things that have
Yes.
been an omission for us as far as history, and it goes back pretty far, and we really don't get a chance to hear or know anything about it until we actually research or do it on our
Mhm.
own. So that's as an advocate, as a father, a Black father, being able to educate my kids on that is very important to me as well.
Yes. Yes.
So you were saying, uh, like that's the burden, but then we
That's the
have,
burden, but then we have your new book, they lived. Tell us about that. I just think that is such a wonderful idea that you came up with. So
Thank you so
I
much.
can't wait to hear about your journey on that.
Well, I can tell you that one is a lot more fun and a little less traumatic. And it wasn't
Mhm.
totally my idea. While I was working on the burden, I'll never forget in February of that year. Um, I barely even watched television or did anything while I was doing all the research and editing for the burden. But I
Mhm.
was looking at Facebook and Twitter and saw these amazing portraits of this little girl dressed like iconic Black women. And I was mesmerized. And it wasn't just that she was dressed like them, but she just carried their tone. You know, when she was
yeah,
Shirley Chisholm, she had her hair, her shoulders back and cried in
Yes.
the glass. And I said, "Oh my God, who is this?" So I didn't have time to deal with it because I was on deadline. But the next February, after the burden came out, they were back again. And there she was as Nikki Giovanni and Barbara Jo. I'm like, who is this kid? So I looked at, it's the internet. I
yep,
went to Facebook. I found Chrissy Smith Jones, and I literally sent her a note saying, I need to talk to you. So she sent me her number. I called her up and I said, what you are doing with your daughter is amazing. I love these photographs, and you are teaching her and other little girls like her about all these beautiful women. I mean, her dressed as
Mhm.
Rosa Parks, as you can see on the cover, where she's got,
yep,
her jailhouse number, her arrest number. She was meticulous about making sure that they looked exactly like them. But she said, but more than that, she wanted her to know what they did so that she could feel like that. And I said, well, you know what? A picture is worth 1,000 words. So I want to write essays to go with these pictures. We
yeah,
can do a whole book, and I'd love to do that. She said, oh no, I'm not doing that. I said, well, wait a minute. She's a very shy homemaker outside of
okay,
Seattle who
okay,
it's like, oh my God, no, no, I don't want that attention.
hmm,
So I got on a plane and flew to Seattle and got in a car and drove
Wow.
to where she lives outside of Seattle and
okay,
took her
Mhm.
and her family to lunch. And I said, I came all this way because this is so important a lesson for our children. Would you please do it? So
yes,
thanks to her mom and her husband and the girls, she said, okay. And then I got too excited. I said, and oh my God, we can do this first one with the women, and then we can do one with men, and then we can do one with politicians and sports stars and scientists and all these amazing Black people. She said, I'm not doing that.
she said,
Oh wow.
I agreed.
Yeah.
I agreed to one book, so we're just going to do one book. And I said, well, if we're only going to do one book, we have to
Mhm.
include boys to men
right,
Yes.
because there's so many iconic Black men who literally made America, and their stories aren't told. She said, well, I'll do that then, as long as it's one book, but I don't have a boy. She has two girls. I said, I got a
Mhm.
boy. So I flew to Dallas and I got my grandson Caleb and flew back to Seattle. And over a weekend, she did with him what she had done with Lola every day for February.
amazing,
Mhm.
And the way we
amazing,
got it done was we would do a photo shoot, and then we take a break so he could have a cupcake and play Fortnite. And then we'd
Oh
redress
wow.
him and do another one. And him as Duke Ellington, and him as Martin Luther
yes.
King, and him as Jackie Robinson. So he would know those people. Him as Muhammad Ali, who I used to cover as a columnist in Louisville, Kentucky. I was so proud of what they were learning and what other kids would learn from this.
So what has been the feedback from it now that it's out? Like, what have you heard from people that have read this book and have seen these images?
Well, let me tell you, this book came out at the end of COVID. So, that
Hmm.
4 year period was like
Hmm.
from
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was almost like a college matriculation without classes where you could not go
Mhm.
anywhere. But the great thing about it was with the burden, I was all over the country, 70 different book stops.
hmm,
For this book, everything had to be virtual. That
Right.
made it easy because I was on with people from Philadelphia one night, I was on with a class
Mhm.
in Seattle the other night, and it was amazing how many people wanted this in schools and wanted to make
Mhm.
sure that their grandchildren and their children got a copy. But the best feedback came from my grandson because I sent the
Mhm.
book down and I told his mom, don't say anything to him, don't encourage him, don't
Mhm.
ask him anything, just hand him the package. And she said he
Right.
opened it up and he went, "Oh man, this is great," and actually sat down and started to read it. And I'm like, okay, that's what I needed to know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yes, it's a great teaching tool, something that we need in our schools today, to continue to remind us, where we came from, and where we're going. And it's just easy reading, but most of all, it appeals to the children, and
Yeah.
that's what I liked about the books. And like you said with your grandson, they were just able to get into it and not feel intimidated, by the wording or anything that we normally read about our history. But I just thought it was just adorable.
Thank you so much. And I do want to say that
Adorable.
on purpose, each one of the essays starts with when they were a kid.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, yes.
as a matter of fact, if you would do me the honor of just picking one, either Jackie Robinson, do Jackie Robinson while you go to they're in alphabetical order, I think. If you go to Jackie Robinson, as I was doing the research for each of these folks who, you think you know everything. As a journalist, we think we know everything. There were so many things I learned about
You can go
each
ahead.
of these folks who, they're a part of our history. We've studied them. We know their stories, but there was still something almost about each one of them that I didn't know until I did the research. And each of the essays starts with, before this person became this, this is what they were.
Mhm.
Like Muhammad Ali, before he became the greatest boxer in the world, he was
Yeah,
12 years old and somebody stole his bike.
hmm
Right, right.
But the Jackie Robinson story was the one that blew me away the most. If you would take a look at Jackie Robinson, he broke the color barrier in the major
Mhm.
hmm
leagues, and was a huge standout star despite all the immense racism that he went through. And, you think that the Jackie Robinson that we grew up learning about was always Jackie Robinson, but
hmm
he wasn't because
Yeah.
his early years told a different story.
Yeah, he was a kid too, so that's where we all start out in small beginnings,
There we go.
in our success. But even with Jackie Robinson, some of the things that they did as a
You
child.
just never know how, and also what moment in their lives might have led to that. So if you would just read that first paragraph for your listeners and viewers.
Jackie Roosevelt Robinson would grow up to be the first African American to play Major League Baseball in the modern era. But when Jackie was 16 years old in high school, a high school student, he was a member of a gang.
Okay,
Jackie was
so
born.
Mm.
right away I'm like, what?
What? Yes, yeah, it's
What are you
like,
talking
huh?
about? And there were like those aha moments with each one of these amazing
Right,
famous people. We think we know all their history and we think we're
right.
Yes.
people need to know. I want some little kid who thinks he has to be in a gang now to know you don't have to do that. Look at what
Mhm.
Jackie Robinson did. His brother said, "You don't need to do that. That's going to wind up killing you. You need to take up sports." And he lettered in four sports. So,
He did, and it was a great movie about him.
yes, yes. Oh my
But
God,
it, but
42.
as, yes, it was a great movie about him that had a lot of history in it. But
But
so
it
yeah,
omitted that.
That's
yeah.
right.
Well, for good reason. So you mentioned that you started when you were 8 years old writing.
Hmm.
So what brought you to become a writer at 8? What inspired you in that moment to say, "Hey, I want to write"?
Well, don't laugh. So, I have no math skills for my whole
Okay.
life. So,
Okay, join the
so
club.
when I had to feed, my mom was an English teacher and she taught me how to read when I was 3. And I used to love to write. I'd write poetry, I'd write stories, make a little newspaper about what was happening, in the neighborhood, just all
Mhm.
those things that you hear about. But that was the stuff that brought me joy, and math brought me pain. And I said, I don't want to do anything in my life where I have to know any math or science. And
Mm,
because writing was my joy, I said, I have to figure out how to be a writer. So when I was in
Mhm.
high school, I excelled at English and history and all of those things, but not until my junior year of high school. And we only had one little high school in the little town where I grew up in North Carolina. The English teacher got the principal's permission to teach a journalism class. And she brought
Mhm.
out these green news writing books. And she said, we're going to have a whole new subject that you can sign up for called journalism. And I said, thank you, Lord. There's how I can make a living as a writer.
Yeah.
All right. Um, in your writing journey, you've been able to do a lot of things, and now that you transitioned in fully into the arts, and looking at some of the documentaries that have done on Detroit, you are literally painting the town with your murals. Okay, with the mural project, I just love that.
Thank you.
Um, Tell me how we as writers can have that same impact that your murals are having on the city. What can we do as
I'm
writers?
so glad you asked because one of the things that people need to understand is as beautiful as art is, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
context is very important. Mona Lisa is a fine painting. It wasn't even really, really famous when she was painted. But over
Right.
the course of time, people learned to appreciate the author, and then she was stolen, and all of a sudden it became global news, and now she's worth millions. And I got to see her in
Mm.
the Louvre. And I said,
Right.
there are, just like I told Christy, my partner on the second book, I said, pictures are worth 1,000 words. So
Mm-hmm.
every time you've got something like that, there's always a backstory. There's always a reason for it. There's always something that will help people appreciate it even more. Every mural that we have, and we have more than 700 on our Detroit mural map now, I
Mm.
could tell a story about the artist that did it or about why they
Mm-hmm.
chose a certain thing to paint. And we want people to sort of get an appreciation. But I'm a wordsmith, so as much as I love the art, I want people to know the artists and the creative workforce that we have that's behind our art and our music and
Right.
all of that. So that's what writers can do to make sure that people know the stories.
Okay.
Okay. So, how do you see the relation between writing and art? Like, how does that drive culture and social progress in your city in Detroit?
I think that one of the things that we have to do is more collaborations anyway. I would
Mm.
hate for
Mm-hmm.
somebody to say, okay, I'm going to give you $1 million to do something in Detroit and we spend it all in one place. People tell you all the time,
Yes.
don't spend your money all in one place.
Mm-hmm.
I think every collaboration we can do that tells the story, and this is for every city, no matter
Mm-hmm.
whether you're in Akron or Austin or Tarboro, North Carolina, where I grew up, if you can find ways to collaborate so
Yeah.
that you are um, making things whole, making moments real for people, that's great. And sometimes those collaborations require words. I would love for there to be, when you go to a museum, sometimes you'll see the art tag will just have the artist's name and the year that they
Yep.
painted something. And sometimes they'll
Right.
have a little bit of information so you know why that's important.
Yep.
I would rather have the art and then something that tells me they painted this in the last year of their life, or they painted this because it was the first place they learned to fish, or they painted this face because this was a woman who saved them. That little bit of collaboration makes stuff even more special and more magical.
It does. It brings value to that painting or that
Yes.
picture or that art, and it gives you a snapshot of what that artist was trying to accomplish when he were making it.
That's right. That's
Hmm.
right.
So while you're in the middle of all this directing and doing what you do best, how do you take your downtime? What's your downtime like as a writer
I'm
when
sorry.
you
What
want?
is downtime? What is that?
Well, I know you have it. You may not
No,
recognize
let me tell you,
it.
I'm teasing because I truly believe in self care, and I had to teach myself that because
Yeah.
I've always been a workaholic and an A personality, and
Mm-hmm.
you cannot always rely on somebody else to do that for you. My two
Yes.
things, I don't care what people want to say about television. They like to call it
Mm-hmm.
the idiot box, or you can't learn. No, we have some of the best television happening now, and there's too much. I have six
Yes.
streaming services, and I also watch some network television. And if you're not looking at some of the stuff that's being created now, you're
Mm-hmm.
missing some great time. So I will literally take a 2 hour break. Last night, I watched the latest Wallace and Gromit movie with the claymation characters. And I also still write. I'm finishing my third book, which is a novel. So if you looked at my dining room table, it's a
Mm-hmm.
circular copper table, and I have all the chapters laid out so that I'm working on them one by one to make sure they're all finished to get it to the agent.
Mm-hmm.
But then the other thing that I love to do, I'm a trivia buff.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I will play any kind of trivia game. We used to do Trivial Pursuit back in the day. We do Scrabble and
Yes, I
Jeopardy
remember
now.
that one.
And once a week, I meet with a national group of folks who come on from around the country and do trivia.
Oh,
And I
Wow.
Oh,
sing
look at
show tunes on demand, so sometimes we also do
Right.
karaoke.
wow, that's enriched, actually.
Yes, that is.
So I try to make time.
Yeah.
Okay, and speaking of your next novel that's coming up, what type of writer are you? Do you outline everything, or you just a prancer and you just go by the seat of your pants? What's your way of getting getting everything organized, getting your thoughts and everything down? Because some people will outline the entire book, and other people just chapter by chapter or whatever comes.
Well, let me tell you the difference in writing nonfiction and fiction. So, for
Mhm.
both of those books, they were nonfiction. One required a lot of
Okay.
editing, and I wrote my essay like I was writing a column. So it was just
Okay.
and then revise it 10 times. For the second book, those essays,
Mhm.
because they had to have a certain structure, I
Mhm.
decided on the structure and then mapped them out because each one had to start. The way you read that one, every single one of them reads like that. Martin Luther King became this amazing civil rights leader, but when he was this age.
Right.
Muhammad
Right.
Ali became the world's greatest boxer, but when he was 12, his bike got stolen. Every one of them was like that. And then I had to tell a story. For this novel started as a short story in 2008.
Mhm.
And
Wow.
I was a fellow, Knight Wallace fellow at the University of Michigan, and the head of the MFA program, the Master of Fine Arts program, read this short story and wanted me to quit my job as a columnist and come and get a master's, an MFA in
Mhm.
writing. And I said, well, I'm not going to quit my job as a columnist. We've got a
Right.
bunch of
Right.
stuff going on, but I will hold on to this story. That story has become this novel. So that means I've been working on it since 2008. And
Wow.
I did not do a chapter outline. I did a
Mhm.
character outline where I decided
Okay.
every single person who was in the book so I could make them whole people. So when I got
Mhm.
to them, it helped me remember who they were. And now I have a chapter outline because I have to tell the story. So that's why it's all laid
Mhm.
out on my tape. I'm pointing like you can see my tape.
right.
It's
Right.
all laid
I
out on my
understand.
table. So I'm going chapter by chapter to get to the end. But
Okay.
I
Mhm.
write based on when something speaks to me. I was
Yeah.
driving
Mhm.
and told somebody, "Oh my God, I just thought of what the end of the book should be." And you're
Okay.
driving. So the first thing I did was grab my trusty iPhone and my Delta Red and
Hmm.
recorded
Okay.
it. I just started talking like I was typing and got home and transcribed it. So now the book has
Yes.
an ending.
Okay. Now that's how I get down to. So there's a thought. It's going in my iPhone and notes, and then I'm transcribing it when I get home.
It's
That's
perfect.
usually how all my ideas come to pass. Sometimes. So I'm glad to hear that someone else is as open as I am about that. They're just in the seat of the moment or the spur of the moment that thought might come to me, and then I'm just like, oh, I got to remember it, and then it's my iPhone for
And
sure.
see, I'm a little older than you, which means if I don't catch it on my iPhone, it might be fleeting. I better get it while it's there.
I know some things are perfect when you first think about it, and if you don't write it down, then it's
You'll
not.
forget.
Yeah, it's
You
not. It
That's it,
doesn't
and
definitely
it's
hit
the
the
same
same
forget.
thing.
after the
Remember when
fact.
people used to talk about how they kept a notebook on the side of the bed? So if they
Yep.
had a
Well, that's me.
problem, so see, you do. Well, I do that with my iPhone. I will literally pick sleepy, but, "Oh,
Mhm.
make sure to write this down because this is good."
Right.
And then the next day,
Yeah.
I'll like, "Well, what is this?"
So how do you balance then? I mean, because you're passionate as a writer, we could definitely hear that from you in your voice, and I know our listeners and our viewers can see that from you and hear that from you. But how do you balance being a writer, the joy of writing, and then also being so like leading the transformation of Detroit in their art industry? Like how does that work for you?
Well, I used to joke and say that working for the mayor was my side hustle, that I'm gonna
Mhm.
always be a writer first. But they're probably equally, well, they're not equally balanced. I worked so hard for this city
Mhm.
that that's why this book isn't finished.
Right.
Um, so as long as the balance is not too unbalanced, like if it's like 60-40, 70-30,
Mhm.
that's
Okay.
okay. But what I do is I make sure that there is a day that is not a city day because you can work
Okay.
7 days a week, 90 hours a week, and not think about it when you're
Mhm.
working for constituents. This is my first, being a columnist was a public service, but this is my first official public service job.
Okay.
So I am very like all in on it. People can call me at night. I had a constituent to call me last night at 9 o'clock about something. I take it very seriously to make sure people know that they have city support for a creative workforce that didn't have it for a long time. There was no Office of Arts and Culture in Detroit for almost 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
The last person who did it, it was an appointed position. When the mayor left, nobody reappointed it. And this mayor brought it back in 2019 and asked me to do it. And it wasn't something I had planned. I literally just had lunch with him to say, I'm going to leave the newsroom and I'm looking for something to do. And he said, what do you want? I said, I need a building because how dare we be the largest, majority Black city in America, and we don't have a Black repertory theater. So I'm
Right.
just going to get that theater management master's over at Wayne State University, and I'm going to
Okay.
run a theater. All he heard was theater. He said, "Oh, you're into the arts?" And I went, "Well, yeah, I'm a photographer and a painter, and I sing show tunes on demand. Why?"
Mm-hmm.
He said, "I need a director of arts and culture." I said, "Well, who's doing that job now?" He said, "Nobody."
Nobody.
And I was so angry at him, but also at me. Here I was, a
Mhm.
columnist, and I hadn't written one word saying, why do we not have more city support for the arts? Why don't we have a director of arts and culture? And he said, are you interested in doing it? I said, yeah. I got a call saying, welcome to the city of Detroit.
Oh
And
wow.
I got sworn in as an appointee, and I've been doing it for 5 years.
So was that your inspirational moment then, as far as the transition from journalism then into arts
Into
and
the
culture?
arts, yeah.
Well, no, because I've always loved the arts. I go to New York to see Broadway shows. And again, I paint and I
Mhm.
work with people.
Mm-hmm.
Doing that theater, like actually creating a theater that was what I was going to do. I was inspired to do art by trying to work
Mhm.
in the arts. But no, I did not think about doing all of it. I just wanted to run my little theater.
Yeah,
So
you just had the love.
yes, but to learn that that was something that was an absolute need, that still
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
spoke to that crusader, that warrior. Like, oh, wait a minute, this has got to happen.
Yes.
Mhm.
So
Mm-hmm.
Well, what would you say to inspire writers today? Specifically Black writers. The market is just full
Yeah.
of with the nonfiction and with the fiction is rising, and the trends are more geared to the young adult writers. What advice would you give to our writers?
this is going to be really hard. It'll be different from what most people will say. Do not write
Mm-hmm.
for the market. Do not look and see
Okay.
what's out there and try to compete, because what happens is
Mm-hmm.
people look for the original.
Yep.
Agents are
Yes.
looking for something they can sell that isn't already out there. As a matter of fact, when you do a book proposal, and this has been true of book proposals for years, I'm sure you know this, the first thing they do as a part of your proposal is the little section that's a market study, because they want to know what you know about your genre. Well, who out there is
Right.
doing what you're doing? Well, if you've
Right.
got some big section of all these people who are already doing this, why should anybody read what you're writing? What you want to do is, number one, be you. And number
Mm-hmm.
two, be original. And number three, make sure it's something you care about. I would not still be working on this book after, oh my God, let's see. So
Yeah.
2009 to
12
2019 is when I
years.
hit the decade. And I'm not
Right.
letting this book
15.
go because, number one, it's vital to me. It's a piece of my soul.
Yes.
And number
Yes.
two, it's really good. So you got to really want it. And this is the advice. That's one thing. Just be original. Don't try to
Mm-hmm.
look at the market and say, well, let me try and write something like that. The other thing is,
Mm-hmm.
do not be a writer if you don't want to be a writer. If somebody says, "Oh,
Okay.
you can be a writer," and you go, "Oh, okay, well, let me try." No, this is not something to try.
Mm-hmm.
You have to. This is almost. I wish I could remember what Nikki said. Nikki Giovanni was a poet. She
Mm-hmm.
was a poet before she was a woman. And she brought
Mm-hmm.
her femininity and her woman power to that being. It wasn't like just a job. It wasn't just something somebody said, oh, you should do this. And
A
there's so many
hobby.
people like that. So you've got to
Mm-hmm.
really want it. And if you want it, you'll do it. And if you don't, go do something else. Don't do this, because first of all, you will really hurt yourself, and second,
Yeah.
you will frustrate others because they will keep trying to help you do something you don't really want to do.
Yep. Keep trying to help you or draw something out of you that you do not
That's
have.
not there.
Right. That's not there.
Well
Uh-huh.
Right
said.
there.
That's exactly
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm. Having a passion for it. All right.
Well,
All
speaking of
right.
passion, though, I have this quote from you that I came across
Uh-oh.
that resonated with me. I mean, I'm sure you've had so many sound bites in your career, but you said, "I'm not just my ancestors' dream, but I am their victory."
Yeah.
And I have wrote poems about this, just thinking to myself like how proud of my family would be of me, knowing what I have been able to accomplish so far, what I mean to not only my family but say my community, and how passionate I am about the things that are important to me. So that quote, where did that come from for you?
Well, I'll tell you, and I'll try to keep it together. So I was raised by my grandparents because my parents divorced and my
Mhm.
mom had multiple sclerosis. So everything
Hmm.
I learned from people who were raising a family for the second time. And while they
Okay.
were very proud of me and they got to see some great pride, they didn't get to see the best of what I'm doing. Everybody in my family, except my mother's older sister, who's 92, they're all gone. My mom,
Wow.
my dad, my grandparents. And so
Mm.
I thought about the day that I went home. I was a reporter at the Washington Post, and I went home to visit the family, and I was sitting on the porch with my grandfather. And, people think that, enslavement is something that, okay, everybody knows about it, talks about. No, that was a very embarrassing and hard and traumatic time for a lot of people. My
Yeah.
grandparents would
Mhm.
never talk about it. So I got on the porch with my grandfather and I said, I need you to tell me about your dad and tell me about your dad's dad and tell me about him. And he would go back only so far. And he said, he took me back as far as my great 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 grandfather and said, and then there was Balaam, and that's enough now. And he got up and went in the house.
Mhm.
And so I went to the North Carolina State Archives to find this enslaved man who was the
Oh wow.
patriarch of our family. And I found him in the
Mhm.
will of this white attorney listed as property with his wife, Jane Pitt, Balaam Pitt and Jane
Hmm.
Pitt, and what they were worth. And so I said, it's not that I don't know that my grandparents were proud. They told me they were proud of me being in the National Honor Society. They were proud that I got a job at the
Right.
Washington Post. But
Yep.
every time I would rise and do something else, like interviewing Barack Obama
Mhm.
or being on television or all these, I would think back to Balaam and say, well, I'm not just a victory for my grandparents, because I used to call myself their dividend because they invested,
Yep.
Oh wow.
but it's for those ancestors who I know
Mhm.
had these horrible, horrible lives, and for them to hopefully know that down the road there would be a great, great, great granddaughter who has gotten to do the things that I'm doing.
Yes.
Yes.
They would be proud. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's exactly what I got out of it too. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Mhm. Can you share just a little bit for us about the mural project and how it's
Oh,
going?
thank you very much. So, murals have been done in Detroit for decades and decades and
Mhm.
decades. The Diego Rivera mural at the Detroit Institute of Arts is one of the most famous in the country. But we have all of these artists of color who have been painting for years. So, about
Mhm.
6.5 years ago, the mayor does not like graffiti. He has made it very clear
Oh,
that he does
okay.
not like graffiti. And so he
okay.
created a whole team, the anti blight team, that would go out and paint over graffiti. But as soon as you paint that wall white, the artist would go
Yep.
out and, just do it again. So this artist named Sanders Skip Bryant, he was at a meeting where they were trying to figure out how do we get people to stop tagging these walls. And he
Hmm.
said,
Mhm.
well, if you paint a mural on it, they won't do it. Artists, your graffiti artists, your street artists are not going to tag a piece of art.
Yep.
So they started painting murals every time they painted over graffiti, and it worked. So, in addition to all of the murals that were being painted by artists anyway, we then had a city way to paint murals on city buildings. So, what I wanted to do was expand opportunities for artists to paint and to make sure that people
Mhm.
knew how amazing the art was. So, we contracted with Canvas, which is this startup that was doing this, and they create a mural map for you where when you go to the map, you can look at any dot on any street. Because I tell you, I got so tired of people calling me saying, "Oh, I'm standing over here on Mack Avenue in this gorgeous mural. Who did this?" I'm like,
Right.
I don't know which mural that is. So you can go right to the map and you can look at that,
Mhm.
pinpoint that on the map, and you click it, and it calls up the mural, the artist who did it, and their story, who they are
Mm.
and why they did it. So that way people get to meet all of those artists. And like I said, we have almost 700. I want us to get to 1,000 because they're coming
Wow.
up every day. Of those 700, I think about 250 of them have been done by that City Walls program covering over blight, and all the rest have been done out of the
Mhm.
talent of artists.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to see it. I'll be there in April
Right.
for
Oh,
Zine
Right.
Fest,
excellent.
but so I'm excited to see it. But we're running up against our time, and we just want to thank you so much for taking the time with us today to talk about you and the things that you're into and the stories that are important to you in your life.
Yes.
And I do want to thank the viewers and the listeners that are with us as well. And I mean, it's amazing. I do want to draw reference to as well, just the fact that the Black experience on our end, having this podcast is just amazing to me. Just to be able to meet you and other artists like yourself and authors. So I just feel whole right now. I just appreciate you.
Oh,
Yes,
thank you
very
so much.
inspiring for our writers. And this is something that they need to hear from someone that is doing it and has carved out a path for them, and curated a space for them to be in. So I wholeheartedly thank you for your work and this wonderful book that we can have now in our own
Hmm.
classrooms to learn
Yeah.
about ourselves, which is so important. Um, are there any other upcoming events that you are participating in that you would like for our viewers to know?
Well, we spent a lot of time in the past year on our murals, and it has been wonderful. And we had the first National Street Art Summit where we brought 7 of the top 10 mural cities to Detroit. So this coming year in
Mm-hmm.
2025, we're focused on the performing arts. We're about to have a performing arts summit on theater, music, dance, and film so that we can
Mm-hmm.
show the landscape of what's possible and what we need to support.
Okay, that's what you
Okay,
wanted,
and
right?
how will we be able to find out that information for those of us that might want to attend?
You can go to DetroitArtsAndCulture.com, or you can check out my website, RochelleRiley.com, where I put everything that I'm doing. And we also have some amazing events that are going to be coming up in September. It'll be the 100th anniversary of the Ocean Suite incident in
Mm.
Detroit. Anybody who doesn't know about that, OSSIAN Suite, he was a doctor, black doctor who wanted to move his family into this white neighborhood, and they terrorized him, and somebody fired shots into their house, and
Oh,
his brother
wow.
fired a shot out and killed a white man, and it led to the trial of the century. It's another one of
Hmm.
those historical moments that our kids should know about. We have a whole neighborhood where his house is now. So it's going to look like that neighborhood he wanted to move into. And we have a composer
Mm-hmm.
laureate, a poet laureate, and a historian on my team that's going to pull together the Ocean Suite Symphony to tell the story
Oh,
of that.
wow.
So I'll let you know
Okay.
when that's coming up. You all need to come back in
Yes.
September for that.
Yes.
Oh,
Please
I'm
do.
excited.
Oh,
I'm
Please do.
truly excited.
We will be there. Absolutely.
All
great.
right.
Sounds good. Well,
Okay.
today's episode was made possible by the Knight Foundation, and we do want to remind our listeners and viewers to check us out on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, the Akron Black Artist Guild, and then also on our website, www.abaguild.org. And we have just to keep writing, right? And we have a
Just to
book.
keep writing, and we do have a book. It's the Black Pen
Hmm.
Volume 1, and we have the Black Pen Volume 2 coming out in the spring, so you might want to check that out. And we always say keep writing and remember what you write matters.
Yes.
And thank you again for
Thank
coming.
you.